So let's talk about invoice creation. Let's talk about invoice creation. So when you say invoice creation within the payables, the invoice creation related information is structured into three parts. Header information, lines information, distribution information. Okay, I'm talking about invoice structure. How the invoice information can be structured. When you create invoice, what structure need to be followed? It's a very important point. When you're learning the application, always you have to think whatever you do, how it is structured, what level it works. We have chart of account structure, we have enterprise structure. Now we are talking about invoice structure, how invoice can be structured, invoice information. In the same way, whatever the setup we do, what level we are setting, and what are the transaction you record, what level you record the transaction, or else within what we record the transaction is very, very important. So when you talk about invoice structure, header information, line information, and distribution information. Header, line, distribution. So we always create invoice within the business unit. Within the business unit, if you want to create the transaction, the business unit level, we create the transaction within the payables application. It could be invoice or payment. Okay. The BU level, we create the transactions within the payables. So when you talk about invoice structure, just make a note. I'll remove this data just for discussion. So header level, what information we provide primarily? So header level we provide, we are going to record the transaction within which BU, and we provide supplier information, and we provide invoice number and currency information and the payment terms. Okay, payment terms and also payment method. Okay, so and other information like dates, invoice creation date. Okay, invoice date you can say. So header level, these are the details we have to provide. In which BU you want to record the invoice, and who is the supplier, and what is the supplier address. Just if you say supplier, you can connect to that point. That is the reason I'm not writing. If you want, just we can add that point. When you say supplier details, site also. Without site, you cannot use any supplier. So header information, BU, supplier and site in details, and invoice number and currency, payment terms, payment method, invoice date. So, and these are the very, very key information when you create the invoice. Yes, if user has access to BU, user will be able to select the BU. Remember, by default, all BUs cannot be available for any user. Always it's based on provisioning. If user is able to access to specific BU, because the BU access is provisioned. If user is not able to access to any BU, the specific BU is not provisioned. It's based on the provisioning, data access, we call as a data access. Giving BU access to specific user, we call as data access. Already we have seen there is a separate task called as data access for users. Through the task, we assigned BU to this user. And supplier and site. If site is assigned to specific BU, then only you can see the supplier name also in the invoice creation. See here, I want to select the supplier. to this business unit, how many supplier sites are assigned? That suppliers, if which site is assigned, the site is belongs to which supplier, only those suppliers you can see here. In the system, we have many suppliers, but here you can access only one supplier called as ERPTREE. Only that supplier related site is assigned to this business unit. Okay, so that's how it is. Many suppliers we have in the system, but you cannot have access to that supplier. Only ERPTREE supplier you can connect. I think we created supplier name as Amex Corporation. Yes, we created as Amex Corporation. Only this supplier we can access. No other supplier you can access. If you want to access any other supplier, that supplier site need to be assigned to this BU. The supplier site need to be assigned to this BU, then only the supplier will be visible. Even supplier name also you cannot access. If the site is assigned to this BU, then only supplier will be available. If you are not able to see any supplier, if you are not able to see specific supplier in the invoice creation page, even the supplier is available in the system, you have to understand that supplier site is not assigned to this BU. This is what we have to understand. Done. Okay. So BU user can get access through provisioning. And if you are able to access to any supplier, that means that supplier site is assigned to the BU which in which BU we are trying to create invoice. If you are not able to see the supplier information in the invoice creation page, that means the supplier is not assigned. When you say supplier site, supplier site is not assigned to that BU. That's what we have to understand. And invoice number. So we get invoice from the supplier. So whatever the number we get from the supplier, same number you have to enter in the invoice creation page. Here is the field number. It's invoice number. So when we get invoice copy, it may be soft copy or physical copy. When you get invoice from the supplier, the same number you have to enter into the system. You should not enter whatever the number you want to enter. The same number. The reason is, if there are some issues with that invoice, tomorrow when you call to supplier will ask you, please tell me the invoice number. Accordingly, they will check in their system. First, they create invoice in their books, they are sending to us. Since we are purchasing, we have to enter into our system same invoice number, so that tomorrow for any reason, if any issue or any reference purpose, if the supplier is going to ask us, we will be able to find out the exact invoice based on invoice number. And as it is, we have to enter the invoice number into our system as per the copy of invoice, how the invoice number is available. And currency, here we discussed business unit level. If currency is set through invoice options, it will be defaulted. If it is not set at business unit level at invoice options, system will take the currency whenever you select the supplier. Supplier level also you can set the default currency that already we have seen as a part of supplier creation process. So if currency is not set as a default at invoice options, system can derive the currency from supplier. If you don't set the currency at supplier level also, manually you can select the currency. Now all the currencies what you see here, these all currencies are enabled in this environment. Reality, what you can do is, which currencies your client is not using, those all currencies you can disable, so that the users no need to see the big list of currencies where they are not required to record the transactions. Say your client is mostly dealing with 5-6 currencies. Except 5-6 currencies, remaining currencies you can disable, so that here when you click on this drop down, the big list will not be displayed. Okay, that's how you can optimize currency access by disabling Any additional currency required later point of time, yes, we can enable, they can access when they create the invoice. Now system is defaulting since we have set default currency at invoice options for this business unit. If default currency is not available at invoice options and the supplier level, so when you say supplier site, supplier level, user has to enter. User has to enter. Generally, we set at BU level, means to invoice options we set. If required, you may set at supplier side to override. If supplier currency is going to be different from the default currency what we are setting at BU level, then you may set at supplier site level. Otherwise, by default, you no need to set at supplier site level. System will derive the currency from invoice options for that BU. And another few points, payment term. So payment term, how system can derive? Payment term system can derive from the invoice options for this BU level. For this BU, what are the invoice options we configured? That invoice options level, what are the default payment terms we provided, that payment term it will take. If you can recall, payment term is mandatory. Currency is not mandatory in the invoice options. Invoice options, default invoice currency, default payment currency, we have two fields. But if you can remember, those fields are optional. So that is the reason you may not set default currency at BU level. In that case, it may derive from the supplier side. If you don't set supplier side and invoice options, user has to enter through manual process. But when you talk about payment terms are mandatory when you set up invoice options. So there is no other way where you can ignore this data. You should set payment terms as a mandatory at invoice option. Any one of the payment term you can set as a default. But reality, which payment term mostly the business unit uses to record the transaction, that payment term we have to set as a default. So you have set payment terms as a default and at invoice option, but when you create the invoice, we need to select the supplier. When you select the supplier, what system will do is, the supplier site level also we can set the default payment term. That already we have seen. If any payment terms are available at supplier site level, system will take that payment term, means system will override. As per this BU invoice options, we have ERPTREE immediate payment terms. Say as per supplier site, you have just immediate or net 45. The moment you select the supplier here, system will change the payment term, whatever available at supplier site level. It will take from supplier site, it will ignore whatever available at invoice options. If you don't set any default payment terms at supplier site, whatever available in the invoice options, that only system will take. So here we have our supplier called as MX. Just type. See here as of now payment term immediate now changed to ERPTREE net 45 because the site level we created site called as dollars. So dollars site level we have set payment terms as net 45. That's what system is taking. Okay, so that's what system is picking. Let's come back. Okay, so this payment term it is defaulting from the invoice options which we have set for this BU. That's what we discussed when you say invoice options to set a controls and to default the information. So defaulting from there, right? And other important point, payment method that we will see once we start creating the invoice. So once you select the supplier level, we given default payment method. Supplier level, we given the default payment method. So ideally, like here, whenever you select the supplier, the site level we given one default payment method. That information you can see by going through invoice actions. If you go to invoice actions, you have a manage installments. Here it system will display. We'll see like when we provide the data for invoice, the detailed information will come across. If you go to manage installments, it will display. As of now, we have incomplete data entry. That is the reason it is not allowing. It is just saying fill the data. Let's just fill for testing. Now go to invoice actions, click on manage installments. Click on manage installments. Now you see system is taking the payment method. From where it is taking? System is taking this payment method from supplier side. Supplier site level. Okay, supplier site is dollars. During the supplier creation, we have set check as a default payment method. For supplier site called as dollars, yes, we have set payment method as a check. But if you want to make the payment to the supplier for this invoice on the different payment method, that you can override. Anytime you can change the payment method during the invoice creation. During the invoice creation, you can change payment method, but one payment method you can set as a default. That means whenever we create invoice with this supplier side, so-and-so payment method need to be derived. So-and-so payment method system has to select. That's how you can set as a default at supplier side. The same is reflecting during the invoice creation. Just notice this. So that's how it is. And invoice date. Here you can provide the date on which date you are creating invoice. You can enter this date. And sometimes the invoice creation date may be past date. Say you received invoice 2 days ago, but you are entering in the system today. Yes, you may select the past date. Okay, past date. Reality you received invoice 2 days ago, or I'll say you received invoice today. But you have a terms and conditions with the supplier saying that whenever supplier print or whenever supplier generate the invoice from their end, that date only we have to take as invoice date. Say supplier reality, they created invoice on 24th from their end, from their system. They might be using Oracle, they might be using some other accounting systems, doesn't matter for us. In their system, from their end, they generated invoice on 24th, but we have one kind of condition. What on which date supplier creates the invoice, that date only we have to record in our books as a invoice date. The supplier created and generated invoice in their books, in their system 2 days ago, but today only we received invoice. Today is 26th. But as per the terms and conditions we have with the supplier, we should enter the date into our system, which is printed on the invoice. So that could be the condition. So accordingly, we have to enter the invoice date. Okay, accordingly, you can enter the invoice date. So payment terms, yes, system is taking. Now, another important field here is term date. Okay, term date, very important. Term date. So the term date means from which date? From which date? By default, what system is doing? Whatever the invoice date I am taking, that date it is taking as a term date. See here, I took 24th. Here also it is taking 24th. I'll pick today's date. Same date is taking as a term date. So what is the purpose of the term date? It's very important. It's very important. The term date will help us to calculate the due date by following these payment terms. Could be due date or discount. We discussed payment term purpose is to calculate due date and discount. Yes, the due dates and the discount dates from where system has to trigger. What should be the base date? From which date? That is term date. So here I'll take immediate payment term. Okay, invoice date can be any date, it doesn't matter. I'm just taking 21st. That's okay. But now system is taking term date. System is taking the term date 21st. That means 21st plus the payment term. It will take, that's how it will derive the due date. 21st plus immediate means 0. In the immediate payment term, we given days as 0. 21st plus 0, that is 21st will be the due date. You can check here. Go to manage installments. You see here, due date is 21st. How it is deriving the due date? Term date plus payment terms. Term date is 21st. Term date is 21st plus immediate means 0. 21st plus 0, that is a due date. Now, I'll change payment terms to net 45. Now, 21st date plus 45 days, that would be the due date. Manage installments. So 21st is the date. From the 21st, it will count 45 days because inside of this payment term, we given days as a 45. 21st plus 45 means, so here it is taking the date as July 5th. Okay, July 5th. July 5th is the due date for this invoice. And here, I'll change the terms as supplier is just telling, I will send you the invoice. I may send at any point of time. I may send 5th or 10th or 20th, etc., etc. But supplier is saying, supplier is coming up with one rule, condition. Whenever I send the invoice, yes, 45 days payment term is applicable, but the 45 days you have to count from the beginning of the month. That could be the rule. In that case, the term date you have to select as a first. So May 1st plus 45 days, that would be the due date. You see here. Okay, May 1st plus payment terms. Payment term is 45. May 1st plus 45, that is June 15th. So payment terms, when you use payment terms itself cannot derive the due date. Payment terms take the support from the term date based on which terms. See, sometimes this term date can be invoice creation date from the supplier. Sometimes this term date can be goods received date. Supplier is saying when the moment you receive the goods, the payment terms will start counting. Okay, the due dates will be derived accordingly. So maybe invoice creation date could be your term date, or goods received date could be your term date, or there could be specific condition. So when we deal with that supplier, so try to understand the importance of term date. So based on the term date, system will calculate the due date by using the payment term, even discount terms also. So if I enter here 10,000, okay, if I use this term date or payment terms, let's take today's date only. Now, if you go to invoice actions, we discussed system calculates the due date and the discounts. Let's check discount is calculating or not. Calculating means now it will display the eligibility of discount, but we don't get discount. If you pay as per eligibility, then you'll get discount. Invoice creation time, you don't get discount. When you are making the payment only, if it is eligible, you will get the discount. Now go to manage installments. So here we are able to see due date. Yes, system is calculating the due date for this 10,000 and it is calculating the discount terms also. As per net 45, we have a 3 installments. The same installment 1, 2, 3. For each installments now. 1 installment and 3 discount stages we have. Those 3. Installment is only 1. We have only 1 installment. Directly we given 45 days. 100% 45 days. But we enter 3 levels of discounts. The same you can see here. 3 levels. Discounts are available 3. So if you pay, here just information. It is not like we have eligibility now. how eligibility is available here system is giving. If we are going to pay, okay, on or before June 10th, on or before June 10th, we'll get 1,000 discount out of 10,000. And we have to pay only 9,000 to supply. And if you are going to pay, okay, on or before 15th June, we will get at least 600 discount. So our liability would be 9,400. Only we have to pay 9,400 to supplier. The third level discount says if you pay on or before 25th June, you will get at least 200 discount. Then you have to pay only 9,800. So this is how you can see this calculation. So we are not getting this. If you pay accordingly, we will get, and system will trigger the discount calculation, discount eligibility calculation at the time of payment. Invoice level, you can see what eligibility you have. If you want to avail it, you can pay accordingly, you will get the real discount. So here in the manage installments, you can see clearly. So we are going to pay this 10,000 by using which payment method and on which date. If discount is applicable, the same you can see here. Okay, when discount is applicable, how much, then finally how much we have to pay to the supplier. So these are all details you can see by navigating to manage installments, right? So this is what we have to understand. Okay, you should include, okay, term date also, very important. Term date. See, understanding is important. Creating invoice, anyone can do it. Don't focus when to create invoice. Still we are discussing. Forget about invoice creation. Understand these data points. You will become powerful. Okay. So invoice header level, we are providing the BU information and supplier information. And automatically system is deriving the legal entity. An invoice number we have to provide, and invoice currency also. Yes, that system is taking, count it, but I'm not writing in the spreadsheet. And invoice amount we have to enter. And the payment term system is deriving from supplier site if available at supplier site. If payment terms are not available at supplier site, it will take from the invoice options. And invoice date and the term date. So very important. And again, in the manage installments, we reviewed the details like payment method and due date based on the payment terms and discount information as per the discount terms. So very important points, just make a note. And here you can notice invoice type, what type of invoice we are creating. Whenever we get invoice from the supplier, whatever we create in the system as a purchase invoice, that we call as standard invoice. If you want to create the debit memo or credit memo or prepayment, yes, you have selection here, that we will see later. And if you are creating invoice based on the purchase order, you have to provide identifying PO, simply just PO. Okay, so PO. So if you provide the PO information, what system will do is system will copy the information from PO to here. If you provide the PO here, the PO is belongs to which BU, it will take the BU. The PO is recorded against which supplier, it will take the supplier. So that's how it will copy certain information from PO. Now we are not going to create any PO based invoices in AP. First we'll understand AP basic invoice creation process. Once we are ready with inventory purchasing setups, we will test how we can create invoice based on the PO, how to create invoice only with the PO, and invoice creation with the PO and receipt. And there are other scenarios also. We will test all. As of now, we are not focusing on invoice creation based on the PO. So if you want to create invoice based on the PO, First, we have to provide the PO information here. Then system will help us to create invoice based on the PO with controls. When you create invoice based on the PO, there is a control. As per the PO only you have to create invoice. As per PO, say invoice amount is 10,000, quantity is 10. When you create invoice, you cannot create more than that. Again, we can set some kind of tolerances. If you want to set some tolerance, allow to create more or less, etc., that works. But by default, system doesn't allow to create invoice beyond the PO information. So that part we will see later, how to create invoice based on the purchase order. For now, we are just discussing how to create invoice through manual process. Another few points, we are at invoice header level. We are at invoice header level. Header level, yes, these are the very key information which we have to provide. And you may attach invoice copy. Whatever invoice copy you get from the supplier, you can attach here. Attachments you can. And the notes, if you want to provide certain notes, you can provide. If you want to write some description, we'll understand what is invoice group after some time in coming sessions. So now, apart from these key fields, there are a few other fields which plays very important role at invoice header level. To see that, you can click on show more. Click on show more. Under show more, we have a different tabs. General tab, accounting tab, tax, additional information, different tabs we have. Now here you can see under general tab, invoice we are going to create from this BU, and payment also we will make from this BU only. It's very clear. Okay, so invoice we are going to create from this, and payment also from here. And here you can see the, for this site, what is the address? What is the address? What is the address for this site? Those details you can see. And the legal entity, what is the taxpayer ID? You can see the information. And here you can see the amount in USD means this is invoice currency. And you can see in which currency you are going to make the payment. Okay. Which currency we are going to make the payment. It's invoice currency. It is a payment currency. Yes, you can make the payment in the different currency also. That we will test when we deal with that concept. So that's how you can see the data here. And if you go to accounting tab, you have accounting date. This is also very important. When you create the accounting for this invoice, with this date only accounting system will create. Okay, with this, we have a calendar that we are calling as accounting calendar. Reason is, from that calendar system will use the date. With the date only, it will create the accounting entries for every invoice and payment. That is the reason the date we are calling as accounting date. By using the date, we are going to create the accounting entries. So system is taking accounting date. So whatever the date we are providing here. See here, I given date as a 21st. Here what date system is taking? The same date. So whatever the invoice date I am providing, that date system is taking as a accounting date. Notice this point. These are very, very important. Okay. If you don't understand, you cannot resolve the issues. You cannot play the game well. Okay. Whatever the date you take, that date system takes as a term date. And whatever the invoice date you are taking, that date system is taking as a accounting date. And term date you can override. Term date you can override. You took invoice date as 26th, but I can make the date, due date need to be calculated from this month ending. I can select, but if you go to show more under accounting tab, invoice date only system is taking as accounting date. Notice these points. So that's how it is. And along with that, you can notice liability distribution. Liability account it is taking. Now tell me where and where we have seen this liability account so far. Unmute and answer. If you are not clear, leave it. If you are clear, please answer. Otherwise, leave it. So where and where we have seen liability account fields. I'm not asking where we filled, where we did not fill. I'm not asking where we have seen the clues of liability fields.
In the supply side page under site assignments tab, you can see the accounting date, this liability distribution. So,
Yeah, complete. Where and where?
under supplier side and under
No, that is clear. That is
Okay.
clear.
Second thing, and you can see under the invoice header accounting tab.
That already in front of us.
Yeah, the two places you can see.
Why should I ask this? Anyone can say no. Anyone, please.
Common options.
Yes.
Common options.
Exactly. First, we have seen in the common options. So when we configure the common options, the very first account is liability account. So liability account is available in the common options as well as liability account we can set at supplier site level, you can say simply. Okay, supplier site level you can set. We discussed during the supplier creation, I clearly mentioned. Please make a note which accounts we have. We have a liability account, prepayment account, bills payable account. Again, we discussed the point, the three accounts are optional at supplier site level. But if you take the same accounts, if you look at the common options, liability and prepayment accounts are mandatory in the common options. Bills payable account is optional in the common options. That we should notice. So now we have liability account we provided in the common option since that is mandatory. Supplier site level, we didn't provide any liability account. Supplier site level. Now we have this field available in the common options on the supplier side. If you provide liability account at supplier site level, system derives the liability account from supplier side. So supplier site level, if you provide liability account, what system will do? It will take the liability account from supplier side to invoice creation page. In the invoice header level, whatever the account we are able to see, this account system takes from supplier side. If you don't provide liability account at supplier side, it will take from the common options. Which common options? This invoice we are creating for which BU? This BU common options. For this BU, we have a common options. In that common options, whatever the liability account is available, that liability account system will derive to invoice header. That liability account system derives to invoice header. Say you given liability account at supplier site, of course it is optional, but you given site level. Anyway, common options is a mandatory, it is not our interest. Okay, it is system interest, it's a mandatory. So common options, it's a mandatory, you should provide. Supplier site optional, you may provide, may not provide. Take the case you provided liability account at supplier site also. That means now you have liability account for your BU at supplier site as well as common options. When you create invoice, system derives the liability account from supplier site. It's a very important point, make a note. So first system will look for liability account at supplier site level. If not available at supplier site, then only it will go to BU level. When I say BU level here, common options. So it derives from the site if available. If site level liability account is not available, system derives from common options. Please make a note, very, very important point. Yep. So now it is deriving from where? Anyone, please. Now it is deriving from where?
Common options.
Common options. Why it is deriving from common options?
Supplier side, we did not provided anything.
Yeah, nothing is available, but system follow the sequence. That's what we have to understand. First, it will go to a site. So whatever the site we are giving, right here we have a site. It will go to site level. If any liability account, it will fetch. Site level, no liability account, it will check. So what is a BU? This is a BU. It will go to this BU related common options. From common options, it will derive. That's it. So just focus on each and every point. Very, very important. Okay. Fine. So these are the points you have to understand when you talk about primarily supplier invoice header. Invoice header. So invoice header level, when you create invoice, if you are creating invoice based on the purchase order, you have to provide the PO number. Accordingly, you can create invoice. Anyway, we will test it, how to create invoices based on the PO. That time you'll understand. And you have to provide select the BU, within which BU you are going to create invoice. Always we create invoice by selecting specific BU. So you have to select. And supplier selection also all depends on access what you got. If supplier site is assigned to this BU, then only you can see the supplier information. If site is not assigned to this BU, you cannot see any supplier from supplier field. Even many suppliers are available in the system. So system derives the legal entity based on the BU selection. If you have only one legal entity, if you have multiple legal entities, within this BU, you want to create the invoice for which legal entity that we have to select. So that's how it is. And it's a mandatory, you have to provide the invoice number. When you talk about invoice number, which number you have to provide, not like any fancy number what you want to enter. It should be the number which supplier given. Okay, supplier given invoice number. If you look at the copy, what you get from the supplier, so that sort of invoice number, the same number you have to provide in the system, and the amount you will enter as per the invoice, and invoice in which currency, the same you have to use, and this can be derived from where already discussed. First system will look at, okay, when you select the BU, it will take BU level, whatever the default currency through invoice options. When you select the supplier site level, if any default currency is available, system will change with that currency. If no default currency at supplier site level, it will take from the invoice options only. Invoice options currency will remain. You don't have any currencies default from invoice options under supplier side, this field will become blank. Then you have to select. Ideally, we set default currency at invoice options. This is a type of invoice what you are creating. Are you doing some correction with the debit or credit memo, or you are giving advance with the prepayment, or it is just invoice what you receive from the supplier against your purchases. So date is nothing but invoice date. Already we have seen the date, whatever you give as invoice date, it will reflect as a term date as well as accounting date, which you can see under accounting tab. If you go to show more, under accounting, the same date, the invoice date is reflecting as a term date and accounting date. Ideally, accounting date, we don't change it. Invoice date only we accept as accounting date. So term date you can change as required. Okay, term date you can change as required. So that's how it is. Again, if you talk about this term date, there are a few points which you have to understand. So you can set the term date how system has to derive. So when you are creating invoice through manual process, we have to choose. But we discussed 99% invoices we create based on the matching. So in that scenario, how it works, you can see. Go to invoice options. This is our BU. So here we have one field called as term date basis. Here it is set to invoice date. That means invoice date system should take as a term date. That is reason the moment you select invoice date, if I select 20th, it is taking 20th. Why it is taking? Who said? This field is telling. The term date system should take as invoice date. Whatever the date we select as a invoice date, the same should become term date. So here you have options. So goods received date. You may set goods received date so that system, when you are creating invoice, will be matching that invoice creation with the PO and receipt. There will be date when they received the goods. So when you create the receipt, you will capture the date on which date you received the goods. So that date it will take as a term date, or else invoice date, on which date you are entering invoice, on which what date you are giving as invoice date. Maybe the date which is printed on the invoice, that is invoice date. That invoice date only it will take as a term date, or else invoice received date. So that can be rule from the supplier, that can be mutually agreed terms and conditions. That day, on the day, I mean, which date you receive the invoice, that date, okay, you have to use as a invoice date. In term date, you have to select as invoice receipt date, not invoice date. Invoice date can be, say, invoice created on the 10th of this month, invoice received today. Invoice date I will give as a 10th, but received date is today. Today date I will give as a term date. From today, system will count the payment terms. That's how it will derive the due date. Or else system date. System date means, as per our system, what is the date today? 26th. We are not talking about which date is on the invoice, which date we received the invoice, and which date goods received. We are not talking about it. Okay, we are not talking about it. So that's how it is. So the term date can be invoice date, the term date can be goods received date, the term date could be the date on which date you are receiving invoice, the term date could be system date, today date, like when you are in the system, what is the date as per calendar, the date. So this is how we can set term date basis. Accordingly system will take here. So when you are creating through manual process, based on what is set here, accordingly it will take. Okay. So if I change to system date, okay, even if I'm going to select some different date, 21st, etc. Okay, system won't take. Now I should save it. If I save it, okay, if I save these changes, so it is not going to take invoice date as a term date. It will take system date as a term date. It will take system date as a term date. So that's what we have to understand. It's a very important point when you talk to the client. So you have to ask the client like, hey, just on what base you calculate the due date? When you enter the invoices, on what base you calculate? You have to ask them. So if they say within the scope, okay, we can provide the solution. If they are telling some other stories, those we cannot implement, but we have to think through, is there any possibility? But ideally, this is what Oracle is providing within the scope. Mostly we come across invoice, due dates, etc. will be calculated with the help of term date. Right? So this is what we have to understand primarily when you talk about invoice header and invoice lines. If you look at the invoice structure, okay, header information, line level, what information we provide, line level. So of course here, let me write, since it's very important. So currency amount, right? Invoice amount, this is invoice amount. So line level, we have to provide line amount. Okay, line level, we have to provide line amount. Header level, we are providing the invoice amount. Line level, we have to provide line amount. And the amount what we are entering at line level, that amount need to be posted into which account. So we have to provide account information. So simply we can call as distribution account. If I enter 10,000 at line level, the 10,000 is belongs to which account? What activity you did? You purchase some goods, or you taken some services, or you spend some expense. So that clearly we have to specify with a distribution account. So distribution account. So that's how it is. And finally, system will copy this line amount and distribution account into distribution information also. So when you talk about invoice, yes, only one header, but you can have multiple lines. You can have multiple lines. In the invoice line level only, you can provide distribution set also. If you want to give, you can give distribution set. If you want to provide the distribution account, yes, you can provide, so that that amount will be posted to this account. If you don't want to provide the distribution account, you provide distribution set. As per distribution set, that accounts will reflect in the distribution information. Okay. So line level, you may enter manual distribution account. So you want to enter account, which account that amount need to be posted. Yes, you enter, the same will be copied to here. Now you are not entering any distribution account at line level. You enter line amount and you take in the distribution set. Say as per this distribution set, we have 3 accounts inside. Those 3 accounts you can see with the respective distribution, how much amount should go to which account. That information detail level you can see at distribution level. Okay, line level you can provide amount. You may enter manual distribution or distribution set. If you enter manual distribution, same it will be copied to distribution. If you provide the distribution set, as per the distribution set, system will create the distribution for invoice with the respective percentage of amount that you can see at distribution level. Let's go to line. You can have a multiple lines also. Say you purchased different items from the supplier, then you can have each item one separate line also. Say you purchased laptop, for laptop one line, you purchased desktop separate line, you purchased mobiles separate lines. For each item you may have a separate line. Each item you may have a separate line, or else you purchase laptop only, for laptop one line, for freight another line, for tax another line. That's how you can have a different lines within the invoice. Within the invoice, you can have a multiple lines. You can have a multiple lines. For each line, you will have a distribution. For each line, whatever the line you have within the invoice, for each line, system creates the distribution. We'll see in the system. Now go to lines. Just expand the line section. And here you can just create the line for this invoice. We entered 10,000. Okay, we entered 10,000. Now click on plus icon. See, system is taking the distribution set. How it is taken? Supplier site level we given. Supplier site level we given distribution set as a internet expense it is taking. If you don't provide a supplier site level, it will be blank. Okay, it would be blank. You may select distribution set which you require, or else you can enter manual distribution here. We'll see that. I'm entering 10,000 at line level. I'm taking 10,000 into one line. You can create 2 lines, 3 lines, and you can distribute the amount accordingly. Now I can take the distribution set, internet expense. What system will do is, this 10,000 it will post into the accounts which are available as per this distribution set. How many accounts we have, how much percentage this 10,000 is posted across those accounts. So if you want to see, you have to go to distribution. Now I don't want to use the distribution set. I want to enter manual distribution. If you don't provide distribution set, you can see one more field as distribution combination. Here you may select manual distribution. This is what we discussed. Distribution set is not mandatory. Now I'm not using distribution set. I'm not using any distribution set. I want to record expenses for internet. So with this account and with this 1000 company, if any code combination is available, I want to use. Otherwise, we have to create. Search. Yes, the same company and account. Rest are defaults. Code combinations available. I'm selecting. So this is how you can enter manual distribution. Now distribution set is not mandatory. You can say it's grayed out. Only you can enter distribution set or manual distribution. Both you cannot enter, not required. Now distribution set became optional. Now if I go to distributions, the same account it will display here. If I go to distributions, the amount and the account it is distributing, it is displaying as it is. Now I'll just cancel this. Again, we'll go back to create invoice. Same story. Select supplier. Okay, provide invoice number. Enter invoice amount. First accept as it is. Go to lines. I'm entering line amount as a 10,000. And system is deriving the distribution set from supplier site. Yes, I want to use distribution set, but not this distribution set for this time. I want to use computers distribution set. Okay, how many lines? By default system is displaying 5 lines. In 5 lines is reflecting the distribution set. No worries, leave it. You don't need to remove those. So computers. Now within the line level, you cannot see which accounts are available within this distribution set. Now we are not sure this 10,000 is going to distribute it across which accounts, how much percentage for each account as per this distribution set. If you want to see those details, you have to click on distribution so that as per this distribution set, which accounts we have, how much percentage of amount is going to be distributed across those accounts. This total 10,000 is going to be distributed across which accounts, how much percentage. If this distribution set is skeleton distribution set, only you can see distribution level accounts, amount you have to enter. Now click on distribution so that how this amount is going to be distributed with the help of distribution set you can see. Now you can see as per our distribution set, these 3 accounts we have, and this is how amount is going to be distributed. 90% to computers account, 8% to tax, 2% to freight. You can just click and you can see which account. So computers account, tax account, and freight account. That's all. So now since we navigated to distribution set, again I cannot change this distribution set. I'll just cancel. Just we are trying to understand, that is the reason I'm repeating this step. So again, same data. Go to lines. 10,000. Now I want to use different distribution set, that is furniture. Now see how distribution happened through this distribution set. Click on distribution tab. Okay. Okay, number already we used. That's fine. Click on distributions. So it is showing, just giving the warning, the invoice has the same supplier, same invoice date, amount and currency in this invoice also. It is giving the message, means it is trying to identify whether any invoice is being duplicated. Okay, system is giving the note. Okay, just click on continue. Review, we know, right? It's a totally different invoice. Just click on continue. Now click on distribution. So as per this distribution set, how this amount is going to be distributed, you can understand. So as we know, furniture distribution set is skeleton. Only it is taking accounts. Now you have to enter the amounts. So 9,900 furniture, 25, also 50, here 50. Now say save and close. So whatever the amount you enter in the distribution level, that should match with the line. Whatever the amount you enter in the line level, that should match with invoice header. That should match with invoice header level. That means invoice header information, invoice line amount, not information, sorry. Invoice header amount, line amount, and distribution amount should match. If invoice amount, header, line, distribution level is not matching, that invoice cannot be processed. That invoice cannot be processed. So invoice header, line, and the distribution level amount should match. Otherwise, you cannot process the invoice. Or else you may create invoice like this. I'll just cancel it. Let's create one more invoice. Just type partial name and use tab, it will fetch. You don't need to type, you don't need to click on search, wasting time. So invoice amount is 10,000. Now I want to create the two lines. 5,000 goes to, I want to post to internet expenses, and I go to second row line. Just place the cursor, it will open. And remaining 5,000. By default, system is taking same distribution set from the site, but I want to change it. I want to change to computers, or else I don't want to enter this distribution set. I want to enter manual distribution, right? I can enter manual distribution also. Yeah, possible. But I will use the distribution set on computers. Now, the total lines amount is equal to header. Okay. Now, here go to distributions now. Click on distributions. Yeah, no issues. It's a different invoice. Click on distributions. So 5,000. Since I selected line 1, I selected, I clicked on distributions, that is internet expense related distribution account. Line 2, I am selecting. Line 2 amount is distributed across which accounts as per this distribution set. I want to see that. This is how the amount is distributed with the help of the distribution set. So that's how you can have multiple lines. For each line, you may have a different distribution set, or else for each line, you may enter manual distribution, or else for one line distribution set, another line, manual distribution, everything is possible. But make sure invoice, header, lines, all the lines amount should be equal to invoice header. All the distributions amount should be equal to all the lines. So this is the rule. This is a condition. If invoice header line distribution amount is not equal, system is not going to allow us to process this invoice to the next level. What is the next level? Yes, we will understand. So this is what we have to understand when you talk about the structure of invoice and what information we provide. Okay. Remember, we are not giving any distribution set at header level. Payment term we are providing at invoice header level, but not distribution set. Okay, distribution set we are giving at line level. Okay, line level. Notice this point. Okay. Now quickly we'll create one invoice. Click on create invoice. Select supplier. If you have multiple sites with this supplier, you can change here. As of now, we have only one supplier with this site. So only one site with this supplier. Or else you may have a multiple sites with the supplier. If you don't assign to this BU, you cannot see. Say Amex Corporation, as per our system, we have 10 sites. But you can see only one site, since that only one site is assigned to this BU. So everything is controlled by assignment. What you are assigning, accordingly you can access. Say 2 sites you assign to this BU, then you will be able to see 2 sites here. You can override. System may select one. Say you have a 2 sites assigned. For site 1, primary pay is enabled at supplier site level, right? While creating the supplier site, we have a checkboxes like sourcing only, and procurement card, and purchasing, and pay, and primary pay, right? These are the fields we have during the supplier site creation. So we discussed there is one checkbox called as primary pay. If you enable primary pay, whenever you select the supplier, that supplier has multiple sites. Those multiple sites are assigned to this BU. Out of all the sites, which site is set to primary pay, that system will pick automatically. Now, why system is picking dollars automatically the moment you select supplier? Only one site we have, or else only one site is assigned to this BU. That is the best possibility system can use. That is the reason it's defaulting. If you have multiple sites and the multiple sites access is given to this BU, whenever you select the supplier, it will verify any site is set to primary, it will default. No site is set to primary, you have to select. You have to select. So that's how it is. Fine. The invoice number is 112233. Is the invoice number. We are creating invoice with $10,000. And yes, this is a standard invoice, just nothing but purchase invoice which we received from the supplier. Now go to lines, expand lines, enter line amount. It could be one or multiple lines. I'm entering only one line total invoice amount. Yes, we want to use the distribution set as a internet expense. And other few points already we reviewed. If you go to show more, right, under accounting tab, system is taking the accounting date and liability account distribution. It is taking from the common option since we don't have liability at supplier site level. Right. So payment terms also it is deriving from supplier site. And what date should be term date. There is a rule in the invoice options. That's how system is deriving. Now, once you enter these details, you have to submit this invoice for validation. This invoice we have to submit for validation. So go to invoice actions and click on validate. Click on validate. The system will validate many points. Many things system will validate that we will understand soon. But as of now, what we can test is whether invoice header line distribution amount is matching or not. Primarily, it will check. Along with that, it will check many other points, data points. We'll see those. But now, like whether header line and distribution amount is matching or not, system will check. For our testing purpose, I'm making header as a 9,000. But if you see line level, we have 10. From line level only, it will default to distribution. So click on distribution. Distribution level also we have a 10. It is taken from line. But header level, we have 9,000 only. Now, when you submit this invoice for validation, system will identify. Okay, system will identify header line distributions are matching or not. If matching, there are many other data points it will verify that we will discuss. For now, this is the point we have to focus. If 3 levels amount is matching, the invoice will get validated. Otherwise, we discussed one concept called as holds. You can place the holds, or else if anything wrong with the invoice information, system also can place the hold. Now let's see system is going to place hold or not, since header amount is not matching with line and distribution. Just go to invoice actions, click on validate. Click on validate. Now see the status of invoice needs revalidation. It's saying needs revalidation. Again, it's saying again you have to validate. Means something wrong it is saying. So what's wrong with this invoice? If you want to understand, click on the same status. Click on the same status, needs revalidation status. It is giving holds information. There is one hold related to line variance. Line variance. And who placed hold? We placed or system placed? The system placed. If we place the hold, it is called as a manual hold. We never placed any hold on this invoice. Just we enter the data and we submit it for validation. So system is placing the hold. System is placing the hold. One hold system placed. The hold is which type of hold? Line variance. To understand, okay, to understand why system placed a hold or what is a line variance, you can click on this number of holds. Only one hold we have, line variance, or else system hold also same. You can click on this. You can click on this hold 1 or here 1. It will give the information. Okay, yes, it is a line related hold, but it is placed by system. What is that hold? I want to understand. Click on that one hold. So what is the hold story? It is related to line variance. There is something wrong with the line variance, line amount, and you read this whole reason. The whole reason is, just let me track it. See, clearly provided by system. The total of invoice lines, okay, does not equal to invoice amount. The total lines, how many lines you have? One line. The one line you have 10,000. The 10,000 is not matching to invoice amount. So line amount is different from invoice amount, it is same. So in that case, you have to correct it. I will try to tell to the system with a release reason saying that no issues, validate. It says you cannot manually release this type of hold. Resolve the hold condition and resubmit the invoice for validation. Okay, that is a violation. If I say validate, it won't validate. It should be equal. If something wrong means if I say validate or please do it, etc., system may do, but it is not acceptable situation or data. That is reason even if you say please release, it won't release. It won't accept. So now only the option is you have to correct it. So you notice you reviewed invoice details. Header amount is 9, line amount is 9,000, 10,000, distribution is 10,000. You take an example. When you create invoice based on the PO, system will take the line amount. System will take the line amount from PO. The same line amount it will go to distribution, but header amount user has to enter by seeing the invoice copy. Line amount system will copy from PO. Your PO amount may be 10 and your header amount may be 12,000. Means as per invoice you got invoice amount as 12, but as per PO you have to pay only 10,000. Now when you submit invoice for the validation, it will throw error message. Right, when you submit invoice, it will throw this kind of message. Then you can verify. Say this 10,000 is coming from PO. When you create invoice by matching with the PO lines, system will copy from the PO only. We don't need to enter. So that is a control, right? It will copy. So header level it is 12. but always our focus would be line, because line information is coming from PO. So now only the point what we have to do is correction. Of course, you'll talk to your supplier. Hey, you give an invoice for 12,000, but the invoice what we placed is 10,000. The PO what we placed is 10 only. How come you give an invoice for 12,000? If there is strong reason, etc., that's a different story. But ideally, like that can be identified as a mistake. So supplier may says, yes, we will send the invoice with the 10,000. I think it by mistake we generate invoice with the 12,000, or you hear from the supplier, accordingly will take action. So if you are not creating invoice based on your PO, as per invoice what you get from supplier, you'll enter in the header, you enter in the line, then everything will go wrong. You'll be paying the amount to whatever supplier is going to quote. So there should be a control mechanism in the system. That is the reason invoice we create based on RPOs, whatever we have in our system, which are created by us. Then you will have a control. Now we corrected. I entered 10,000 now matching. Header amount, line amount, distribution amount is matching. Now resubmit this invoice for validation. It is just showing this is the invoice what you are entering, the information what you entered is similar to this invoice what you entered. Say no worries, continue. Okay, continue. Now here just we said continue, that is the reason it is not taking action. Again you have to submit for validation. For the message we said continue. Okay, now again click on validate. Now it will submit for validation. See, the status is validated. Status is validated. We created invoice and we validated. Okay, header information, line information, and distribution information. You notice here what you can edit, what you cannot edit now. Okay, I don't need to explain. It is in front of us. Even when you are practicing also, please spend some time. Once you validate invoice, what fields you can edit, what fields you cannot edit. You can see clearly. You cannot change the BU, you cannot change the supplier, you cannot change supplier site. LU you can change. Invoice number you can update, invoice amount you can update, and line level also you can update, and distribution set you cannot update. Payment term anytime you can change, term date anytime you can change, invoice date you can change. And if you go to show more, you go to accounting tab, the date and liability account is all you can change. Just we validated invoice. Try to understand. We entered and we validated. Let's find that invoice. Again, go back to the task pan. And by clicking on create invoices, we create invoice. If you want to see the invoices, whatever we created, click on manage invoices. The invoice number is 112233. If you think you created many invoices on the same day, you can filter with the date also. Okay. If I give only invoice date, it will give all the invoices which I created. But I want in this, with this date, the specific invoice I want to filter. So click on search. You can see the invoice, whatever we created. You can see invoice status is validated. Okay, invoice number, invoice date, invoice creation date, who is the supplier, what is supplier site, and unpaid amount, how much we have in that invoice. Total amount is unpaid. Okay, say out of 10 you paid 9,000. System will display here only 1,000 is unpaid. Now as of now, total invoice amount is unpaid. So here is invoice amount, here is unpaid amount. As of now, both are same. So applied prepayments. Any prepayments applied on this invoice? No. We discussed, right? There is a prepayment concept. As of now, no prepayments applied to this invoice because we don't have any prepayment also. And which type of invoice is this? Standard invoice. And validation type, validation status. What is the status of this invoice? Validated, not needs revalidation, etc. And approval status. Any approvals are required for this invoice? No. We'll be testing approvals later. Any holds on this invoice? No. And here we could see very limited fields. You can add additional fields by going through view columns and say show all. Click on show all. The same record, it will display additional fields. Now you can see many additional fields you are able to see. You see the very important field called as source. Source means where this invoice is created. Within the payables. Within the payables means manual invoice entry. Manually we create invoice within the payables. If it is coming from other application, you can see that application name here. Okay, if invoice is coming into payables from any other application, or else you created invoice through spreadsheet, then it will display source as a spreadsheet. It is not created directly in the payables through manual process. It was created in the spreadsheet and it is imported into payables. That's how it will display the source. And apart from that, many other fields also you can see here. So in that invoice, which payment terms we have, payment currency, we are going to pay in which currency, right? So which BU we created that invoice and which legal entity we created. You can see that. And accounting status, whether accounting is created for this invoice or not. Okay, fund status, if you are using the budget, okay, whether funds required or not required, no budget. So that's how it is. So this is how you can create invoice and you can review the invoice details. So when you submit invoice, okay, when you submit invoice for validation, system is checking header, line, and distribution information. See, whenever you create invoice, okay, whenever you create invoice, it is not mandatory. You have to validate from there only. Say, I will go back to this invoice. This is our invoice. It's validated. Now we have a few more invoices, right? Instead of invoice number, I'll search with the supplier name. Amex Corporation. Search with this supplier. Any invoice are created, you can see those. These many invoices for testing we created, right? But only one invoice we validated. Only one invoice we validated. Remaining all invoices are not validated. Okay, not validated. Now we can go and validate all these invoices in one go. I don't want to open this invoice. I don't want to validate. See, I don't want to click on this invoice number. I click, it will open. I can go to actions. I can say validate, but I don't want to do this. With the one action, I want to validate all these invoices. All invoices out of 5, 1 is validated, remaining 4 invoices are not validated. I want to submit all the invoices for validation. So in that case, go to task pan. Here you have one task called as validate invoices. Here you can understand when you click on validate invoices, it is going to validate exactly what you can understand. We discussed when you submit invoice for validation, it will validate header, line, distribution amount is matching or not. Yes, that is one of the validation data point. Apart from that, it is going to validate many other data points. Those we will understand now. Just click on validate invoices task. Now just place the cursor here. What system is going to do? Now system is going to run one job. Validate payable invoices, it is going to run. When system will run this, what exactly it is going to validate, you can see in the description. It's a very important point. Just place the cursor on this description. See. Just make a note. It's very, very important. when you submit invoice for validation, what exactly system is going to check? First, it will check, see here. First, it will check the matching. The invoice is created based on the PO or not. First, it will check. If it is created based on the PO, it will copy PO lines to invoice lines. We no need to enter lines when you create invoice or matching with the PO. It will check whether this is matching invoice or unmatched invoice. Means invoice is created based on the PO or not. See that second point. Let me zoom in. Pop-up is as it is. Fine. So matching, it will check whether invoice is being created with the PO or not. Second point is the tax. When you submit invoice for a validation, system will look at whether tax is applicable or not. If it is applicable, it will calculate the moment you submit for validation. The validation process will trigger the tax also. And again, it will check the period status. Okay. So we are creating invoice in the payables. We are creating invoice in the payables. What is the period status? It will check. Okay. What is the period status for payables? It will check. And conversion rate. So it will check conversion rates are available or not. Now we create invoice in the ledger currency, functional currency. So we don't need conversions. Our ledger currency is USD, but you may create invoice in the foreign currency. In such kind of scenarios, it requires exchange rate. That is nothing but conversion rate. Okay, conversion rate is nothing but exchange rates. Now anyway not required, but reality system will check if any currencies are required, whether those are available or not, exchange rates it will check. And it will check distribution information for invoice. It will check whether distribution is provided or not. If distribution is provided, distribution amount, line amount, header amount is matching or not, it will check. And it uses tolerance template. Means you may set, okay, you may set it is applicable only for PO related invoices. Say PO amount is 10,000, invoice amount is 11,000. Invoice amount should not be more than PO amount. Invoice amount can be less than PO amount. Okay, invoice amount should not be more than PO amount. But you may set in the system allow 10% tolerance. In that case, system will allow. Whether any tolerances are applicable or not in the system, that's what system will verify. This all system is going to verify. It is going to check whether this is a PO based or non-PO based invoice. Any tax is applicable at this for this invoice, and what is the status of AP period, and what is whether conversion rates are available or not if required, and distribution is created or not. Again, distribution amount, line amount, header amount is matching or not. If any difference can be allowed between the PO and invoice. So these are all points this validation job is going to consider. If you can just specify this validation you are running for which business unit, and that is aligned with which ledger. That you can rest of these all we call as parameters. When you submit any job or when you submit the reports, parameters are very, very important. Based on the parameters only system will take the action. Okay. You want to say like you want to run the validation, the invoices which are created only today from and to data given today. Invoices which are created with this date range only, system will submit for validation. Previous all invoices it will ignore. That's how it is. Fine. So you don't need to set any parameters now. You can submit. So very important point, what validation process is going to check, we have to understand. Okay. So that's how it is. Now click on submit. Click on submit. It submitted a process and it created process ID. We can go to ESS job page. There you can review this, but not required. It's a very standard. It will complete. We submitted. Click on cancel to come out from this page. Now go back to our invoices. The task name is manage invoices. And select our supplier. Mix type and use tab, it will fetch. Click on search. The days and all not required, leave it, say go. Now just review the status. Okay, so these are the invoices which are created against our supplier. Now look at the column called as validation status. All are validated. System identified in all the invoices, right? Header line distribution is matching, tax is not applicable, invoice is not matched invoice, conversion rates not required. All system is verified, everything is fine with these invoices, and it created. Now any invoice you can see who created also. Tomorrow when you are working, like, of course we don't enter invoices, the business, we have to educate them saying that this is how invoices can be created. So then what if they have some query like who created the invoice, they can just check from there. So in the system side, they can select invoice, they can click on about this record. It shows this user created this invoice, who created this invoice, this invoice. So that's how they can check the record history so that they can understand who created and who is working on the etc. So that's how just we need to create invoice. It's very, very high level. We'll create variety of invoices and we'll understand, go deeper. What are the other options, other fields or check boxes we have to focus. We will come across when we are dealing with the different use cases, different scenarios, whatever we discussed from payable side. Right. So we discussed many concepts, right? Yep. So this is all we are going to test. Now just we have seen how to create invoice without matching. This is what we completed. We'll create many without PO, like unmatched invoices. So, but just what we tested is this. Just we have seen very high level how to create the invoice. So once you create invoice, once you validate, this invoice need to be accounted. Okay, the invoice need to be accounted. If any approvals we have to submit for approvals, then we can take this invoice for payment. And again, we have to understand few points so related to that we will see in the tomorrow session. Okay, if we start accounting again, it takes some time, few points we have to understand. Accounting, how to create accounting, what are the accounting you create, if it goes wrong, how to correct it, how system can automate that correction. These points we have to understand. When you say accounting, you don't see as a big thing if you are not from the kind of accounting background. So everything pretty much easy, you can understand. You don't need to worry about how the accounting would be. Pretty simple, we can understand that. So you don't need to look at your academics. Whenever you come across the term called as accounting, it's not that much big accounting. Everything system will take care. Just we have to watch it and we have to understand very few points. That's it. So we have many concepts here which we are going to execute, and we just completed very high level this how to create the just a standard invoice. Okay, how to create the standard invoice we completed. And if you look at this standard invoice creation, we didn't complete any additional setups. That's what we have to understand. By following the basic setups itself, the basic setups, whatever we completed, based on those basic setups only, right? Where we have that. I think we scroll little right. By following these basic setups itself supported us to create the standard invoice. No additional setups we did. But for many concepts, we have to do the additional setups. that we'll see. To create the standard invoice, we don't need any additional setups. So with the help of basic setups, we are able to create the standard invoice. So that's what we have to understand. So just remember, this is a structure, and make a note what data we provide at header, line, and distribution level also. And when you create accounting, again, just we can understand few additional points. Then various actions on invoice and various concepts in the payables, which concepts, additional setups are required. We will focus on all those points. Now we are done for today. If you have any questions, you can stay back. We'll discuss. Just I'm removing this data. We don't need. Hope you captured. Fine. Just we created standard invoice. Create. Okay. Standard invoice. That is without PO. You can call as non-PO, right? Without PO. Without PO, we created standard invoice in the payables application. That's what we have seen. Now, any questions from anyone, you can unmute and ask.
If different suppliers provide same invoice numbers, means how system will validate that?
Yeah, different suppliers it is okay. Same supplier it doesn't allow. Okay. Different supplier it will verify. Okay, within the supplier or across the supplier. Within the supplier, duplicate number is not allowed.
Okay.
Even say for example, one supplier given invoice number as 123. So later you got invoice from the same supplier after some time with the same number. But as per our product functionality, it doesn't support. You cannot create duplicate invoice against the same supplier. But reality, you got invoice. Since system doesn't support, just you plan like you ask business users to put some prefix or suffix for that. Okay. You may ask, since say first they'll try with this number. Already that is there. One month ago, they created one invoice number is 123. Now user will enter the same invoice number. System will throw error message saying that duplicate. We have seen, right? We have seen system thrown error message. This number already exists. So that's how it will throw error message. When you come to know, then internally you can have a plan. If any invoice number is being duplicated, if supplier is giving, we cannot ask supplier don't give duplicate numbers. You may ask, but that could be their process, etc. Then internally you can have a plan saying that whenever we get same invoice number from same supplier, yes, when we enter in the system, we'll come to know. If you identify the supplier number is duplicated, you may keep as a starting letter as a D, then enter original invoice number. Or else you have a scenario, suppliers will give the invoices and many times you get duplicate numbers from supplier. So many duplicate numbers you are getting means you may plan like first time duplicate number means 1, second time 2. Yes. It's kind of workaround. There is no direct solution as per system. So duplicate invoice number system won't allow. Some suppliers may send, same supplier can give duplicate numbers, then system doesn't allow. Okay, system doesn't allow. Now see here. So from this user, we have access to many BUs. Okay, many BUs. Now I will just search for invoice number 1111. Search. If you see, same number is there in the system, 1111. Supplier is ABC supplier, 1111. Another supplier, 1111. System level, it is accepting, right? So system level is accepting, but within the supplier, it doesn't allow. Payables, you can enter same number, same invoice number if suppliers are different. If supplier is same, it doesn't allow. Supplier is same, it doesn't allow. We created invoice number, okay, like 11111. Our supplier is Amex Corporation. If you want to create one more, the same number, it doesn't allow. Create invoice. Supplier is should be same. 11111. $1,000. $1,000. I'll go with the same distribution set. Submit for validation. Entered not 1111111 I entered. One more I added. Okay, that is reason to accept it. I just took one more digit extra. Let's create. We'll test it simple. So already we have 1111111 supplier number, not invoice number. So already we have that invoice number in the system with the same supplier. With other supplier, if you have, that's okay. System will accept the same supplier. Now submit for validation. This invoice number already exists. Enter a unique invoice number. But this is a reality. Okay, it is not like we are entering by mistake. Reality, from Amex supplier, we got one more invoice with the same number. Then you can talk to the supplier saying that, hey, just we are getting duplicate same invoices with the same number. It will be challenge for us to enter in the system. Same number, our system doesn't allow, etc. Reality, suppliers also, they don't create duplicate numbers mostly. If they have some way of creating from different environments, different systems they are sending, it may happen. So in that case, there is no other option. Already supplier given invoice, and now what you can do is you may put D. Means as a payables user, by seeing that I can understand. So internally we can have a meeting saying that if any duplicate numbers we are getting from any supplier. So what better for indication purpose, we'll keep as a D as a first letter. So that's how we'll be able to understand. So the real invoice number, I don't consider D. 11111 is the real invoice number. That's how I can have internal call. That's how we can plan and we can deal with the duplicate invoice numbers. Now system will accept, right? So this is by default, as per product functionality, duplicate invoice numbers are not allowed within the supplier. Across suppliers, okay. It's validated.
So is this applicable even for our expenses? I mean, if like we create employee as supplier, even then
That's a different story. That's a different story.
Okay.
The system will generate.
Hmm.
Yeah, system will generate. Again, that you will provide from other. You will be just setting prefix. What should be the prefix? If you want to set rest of number, system will generate. Again, invoice type also would be different.
right, correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that's system generated. Since system generated, what system will do? System will follow the database sequence.
Hmm.
It would be unique.
Mhm.
Any questions, please?
Yes, sir. The invoice creation invoice page, we have tax line, right? In real time, how the tax will be calculated is manually
We'll see in our classes.
Okay.
How tax? We have a concept, right? Withholding tax. Fusion tax.
Okay. Yeah.
There we will see. Automatically, system will calculate. Even manually, also you can select.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions?
So there is a checkbox on invoice entry which says evaluate duplicate invoice hold during validation.
Where did you see that?
It's on invoice options.
Yeah, we'll see like
Oh,
hold etc. That is separate concept. When you deal with the holds concept, we'll come across.
okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Actually, I don't have questions on this particular topic. Can I ask previous class question?
Yes.
Actually, this question I asked in the last class, but you have suggested to go through the video. But there in the video, you have not discussed that particular topic, sir. The question is that in the create site page, we have a different tabs, right? So once the save is selected, then some tabs will be
You
enabled.
have to tell me clearly, then only I can understand.
Yeah, in the tabs we have actually 5, 6 tabs like payments and sent to ship tab. What happens is that in one of my instance, actually, I'm using our particular company's training instance, sir. Okay, these particular 2 tabs are not enabled.
Which 2
So
tabs?
the payment and ship to assigned to BU tab.
Okay.
Payment and assignment to BU tabs. Sir. Those two tabs are not getting enabled. So because of that reason, I could not create a pay site for supplier.
See the plus icon. Are you able to create the site or not?
Yeah, I'm able to create site. I'm able to create the site.
You are able to create the site.
Yep.
So you are able to create the site.
Correct.
After creating site, you are able to assign the site to BU or not?
No. The last after invoicing tab, we have payments and site estimate tabs, right, sir? Those 2 tabs are not visible in my instance.
Okay. These
Correct.
Are you creating site properly by enabling all the check?
Correct. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Previously,
Everything you followed.
in the create address page, I have enabled those 2 tabs, but related purchasing and payment. Yeah, enabled, sir. Perfect. Yeah, enabled.
Purchasing is enabled.
Purchasing, receiving, invoicing, both 4 are coming, but rest of the 2 tabs are not coming.
Okay. You enabled all these checkboxes, right? Purchasing.
Correct, sir.
There is no like then we have to look into that. Ideally, just it should come. If you just assign this site assignment also, you are not getting.
Yeah,
Right?
I'm not getting. Yeah.
If you are not a procurement agent, first of all, you cannot create the site also. But you
Yes,
are
sir.
procurement agent, you are able to create the site. And again, you are telling your internal company instance.
Yes, sir.
So that I cannot ask you to test it. So you have to take care of it. If it is our training related instance, I can look into that. If it is a company, I should not ask you to share with me to look into that. Do one thing. You try to create one more supplier and test it. Yeah, no need to depend on the same supplier. Okay. And make sure you are following the exact process, right? You are not missing anything. And try once again. Just try once again. Try to create one more supplier and see. Let's see how it works.
Sure, sir.
Yeah. So any other questions from anyone? Great. So no questions. If no questions, that's all for today. We'll catch up tomorrow, same time. Thank you all.